Welcome back to another Action Game Maker tutorial. Today I'm going to go over the option for editable children. So with that said, let's get started. Alright, so here I am in the menu sample project that comes with Action Game Maker. If you want, you can follow along. And I just want to show you how I made my NPCs really scalable using an option to edit the children. And what I mean by that is that you can see that I have these objects under this object root, which by the way is depreciated now. So technically you can grab these all out and you can get them out of there and delete the root node or that object root node, and it will run just fine. If you are not fully caught up, the object root nodes are now handled under a parallax 2D. So if you want a new layer, you need to add a parallax 2D, and that will be your layer. So if I wanted to go to this layer, I'd have to have this be a parallax 2D. But anyway, we're on to editable children. You can see that in this setup right here, that all these NPCs have this arrow where I can look at them and kind of see their inner workings. Now, if I just go up to this base layer right here and I instantiate a scene and I instantiate an NPC player right here, and let's just move it right here. If I look at it right here, it's definitely different than the other NPCs. I don't have an arrow and I can't really edit it. Matter of fact, if I go into the scene by clicking this icon, you can see that this is definitely the default way that the player comes up. Matter of fact, I think the text box might say the same thing too. So here's an example of the text box. And then if I go to the village right here, you can see that I can't change anything. Where these other ones, I can. I can actually look at this one and I can click on this text and I can change it from right here. So how was I able to do this, yet they're the same object? So the first thing that you got to know about is that you can right click, and you can come down here to make editable children, or I guess just editable children. And when you click on that, it actually gives you that arrow that I was talking about that is going to let you start to change some of these node properties that you might have. Now, there are some caveats to this, and I will make those known later. This is not always a system you want to use, especially if you know you're going to make lots of changes. This would not be a good way to go about this, so I'll explain that later though. But from here, I can actually start to change things. So by default, the NPC's text box node is off, where I can now turn it on. We can go down to the text right here, and we can see that it has some text in here. This is the default text that came with it. And now we can see that I can change this. This is new text. All right. And now we notice that the dialog box is not the same size, so I need to resize that dialog box. So I can grab this box right here, and I can just move it till it looks good. And then I can just move it down till it starts to get on that arrow thing right there. And then if I want it more centered, I can just move this middle section right here to where it's about middle of the player. And boom, now I have my new text and my new node box right here. And I can just hide it, and now that will be ready, because what happens is in the visual script, when you touch it, all it does is it changes property and it turns this visible on. And that's all it does, is it just toggles this on and off. All right, so that is how I change the text. That's useful and all. And another thing that I'll just throw out there is you can also change the texture. So if I wanted this dialog box to be different, I could change this texture and it would be different from here. If I wanted to make this interact icon right here, which you can't see unless I hide this part right here. Because yeah, if I hide that all, okay, yeah. So if I hide this all, you can see the interaction. Now, what this does is when I'm in range in the visual script here, matter of fact, I guess I better just show you. So when I'm in range, and you can see that I'm just using in certain distance of, let's just say 50 or less, then what happens is that it's going to turn that interaction animation and it's going to turn it on. It's going to turn the visible property of it on. Then if I am starting and standing, it's going to turn it off. Now, if I am pressing an input at it, then I'm going to change the text box node visible to be on. And then I'm also going to turn the indicator off because now I'm using it. And then we're going to, once I click a button again, we're going to reset the text box, which we're going to turn the text box visible to off, and then it's going to go back to stand, which if I'm in range, will turn that indicator back on. So that's kind of the gist of how the talking goes in my game. I think there's better setups and way cooler looking ones than this, but I did think this was really cool, and that's why I wanted to add this in the sample project. Now, this was just for text. Now let's look at another way that I used it. And we'll go right here, and you can see that each NPC, let me hide this as it was, each NPC looks different. So how did I make them look different, even though I don't provide a way to do that? And that is because, again, using the editable children, if I go to the sprite right here, we can see that I have the texture that I'm using, and it's kind of the typical RPG fashion, rpgmaker fashion. And you can see that I already have all the H frames and V frames associated with it and all these things, but I can change all of these to anything that I wanted. Now, what I did for ease of use is I made it to where the sprites always use this same format. So for example, I came down to objects and then NPCs and then the sprites for the NPCs. And you can see I have just a ton of sprites. They're all in the same format. Even though it doesn't matter, I could change the H frames and V frames if I wanted, but I just found that, I don't know, it was just easier to do this way. Let's just say that I wanted to make this be a dog. I have this dog sprite right here. I can just drag that into there, and boom, this is now a dog. And if I have it roam, for example, if I go to the NPC here, and I change its action to a Roman talk, it's going to walk around. So if I was to playtest this, we'll see now this dog that walks around the screen, just like the chicken. And there we go. Now I can also talk to the dog, and it says this is new text, just the same text that I had. I talk to the chicken, it says the cluck cluck. So yeah, this was how I was able to utilize the editable children to not only change the text and the text box size and things like this, but also the images at just a few different clicks, and it only took one object to do this. So I wanted to show you guys this, and the one thing that we do need to be careful of, and you can see there's some maybe issues with collisions right here, but that's fine, is that you got to be careful, because if you change something in the main object here, it has potential to reset the properties that you changed right here. And so, for example, if I go to the NPC, let's try to break this, okay? So I'm just going to try to find ways to break this, and because I'm not sure exactly what happens either. So let's just do this. Let's just type in, haha, break this text. And then I'm going to save this, and let's see what happens to our villagers right here. Let's see if it changed anything. Okay, so that didn't change anything, so we can change the property on here, and that doesn't matter. Now let's move this text, all right? Let's move this text out and of this parent right here, and then I'm going to save it. Now let's go to the village, and the text is now the haha, I'm going to break this text. So you can see that because we just changed the node, that it broke the whole order of how the editable children was, and therefore the edits didn't take effect. So the only way that I recommend this system is that if it is a small system that you know exactly how it handled. Now, let me show you one thing. Let's just say that you accidentally did this and you're like, holy cow, I got to go through all my NPCs to do this. You can quite simply just click on NPC right here, right click it, and click on View Owners, and it's going to show you everywhere that you have used these, all right? So you should be able to find them pretty easy if you really had to go back and tweak them. But if you use a dialogue system like this, like I actually wouldn't recommend it for the dialogue system that I did, because any kind of scale to that system and it's broken and you have to go write those dialogues again. So anyway, I just wanted to show you the little caveats that could happen because of that. So hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions, you can comment below. Steam forum, Discord, we'll get you figured out. That said, I'll see you at the next video.